The stars shone brightly over the Nilari Empire, painting the sky with streaks of light. The royal city glimmered beneath the starlight, its towers tall and elegant. Inside the main palace, Princess Leora walked through the hallways, her mind restless. She had rejected every suitor that had come to ask for her hand. Many rulers of distant systems sent their best nobles, hoping to marry her and strengthen their positions. But Leora refused them all. None of them understood her, and none of them made her heart stir. King Varos, her father, watched her from his throne. He sighed deeply. "Leora, you cannot stay alone forever. The Empire needs an alliance. We must think of the future." Leora stopped and looked at him. Her eyes were calm but firm. "Father, I know my duty, but I cannot marry someone I do not care for." The king shook his head. "Your heart is young, but the galaxy does not wait. Other rulers will not forgive this delay." Meanwhile, far across the stars, a small human ship approached the Nilari system. Its engines hummed quietly, and inside, a group of humans prepared to meet the aliens. The delegation included a young engineer named Evan, who had worked on starship engines since he was a boy. He was nervous but curious. This was his first mission outside the solar system, and it was to a place he had only seen in simulations. Evan studied the Nilari star charts, noticing the pattern of their planets and moons. "This empire is older than any human history book I've read," he whispered to his companion, a pilot named Lily. "I hope they welcome us peacefully." Lily smiled. "You worry too much. Just be yourself. The princess is not a threat." Evan chuckled nervously. "I am not so sure about that. I heard she refuses every suitor." The ship glided toward the palace docking bay. The Nilari welcomed the humans with careful eyes, their movements graceful and precise. Leora watched from a balcony above, curious about these strange beings. They were small compared to her people, and their skin looked soft and fragile. She wondered if they understood honor, courage, and loyalty. When Evan stepped out of the ship, he looked around in awe. The palace was magnificent. Towers reached the sky, and the gardens were full of glowing plants. He tried to hide his amazement, but Lily noticed. "Relax," she said. "They can see your expressions anyway." Leora descended to meet the humans. Her robe shimmered with delicate colors, and her hair fell like silver threads around her shoulders. She walked with confidence, and her eyes met Evan's for the first time. He did not bow excessively or speak with practiced flattery. He simply said, "Greetings, Princess. I am Evan. It is an honor to meet you." Leora raised an eyebrow. She had expected formal words and bows. This human was different. There was a hint of honesty in his voice, and he did not tremble in fear or try to impress her. She felt a strange curiosity. King Varos stepped forward. "Princess, these humans come in peace. They bring knowledge and goodwill from Earth." Leora nodded. "I see. Welcome to the Nilari Empire." Evan looked around, noticing the grandeur of the palace. "It is beautiful. I hope we can learn from each other." The princess studied him silently, noting the calm in his voice and the steadiness in his posture. She wondered why none of the nobles she had met before could inspire such quiet confidence. The humans were escorted to the guest quarters. Evan walked slowly, still observing the palace. The walls were covered with murals depicting the history of the Nilari people. He felt a mixture of awe and respect. The next day, Evan was assigned to work in the palace hangar, repairing an old starship that had been inactive for decades. Leora visited, claiming she needed to inspect the facility. In truth, she wanted to see him again. She observed how he worked carefully, without pride or arrogance. His hands moved with skill, but his eyes were gentle. "You handle these machines well," she said, standing beside him. Evan looked up and smiled. "Thank you, Princess. I have worked on similar engines on Earth. They are different, but the principles are the same. Leora nodded. She wanted to ask more, but she stopped herself. She had always kept her distance from those who sought her attention. Yet something about Evan felt different. Days passed, and Evan continued his work. Leora found herself visiting more often, asking questions about his methods and Earth. She listened to his stories about rivers, forests, and human cities. His descriptions were simple, but they painted vivid pictures in her mind. She had never thought much about other worlds beyond the ones she ruled over. One evening, as the twin suns set over the palace, Evan and Leora walked in the gardens. The glow from the plants lit their faces softly. "Do you miss your home?" Leora asked. Evan nodded. "Sometimes. Earth is full of life, chaos, and beauty, but I am glad to be here. I have never seen anything like your empire." Leora smiled faintly. "And you have never been like any visitor I have met." Evan looked at her, puzzled. "What do you mean?" She paused, choosing her words. "Most who come here want to impress, to gain favor. You are not like that. You speak honestly and treat me as a person, not a prize." Evan felt warmth in his chest. "I believe people should be judged by their actions, not their titles." Leora considered this. She had been surrounded by titles, politics, and expectations for all her life, and yet she found herself drawn to this human who had no ambition for her throne or her status. Suddenly, an alarm sounded in the palace. Leora and Evan ran toward the control room. A minor system failure had occurred in one of the energy conduits. While it was not dangerous, it required immediate attention. Evan worked quickly, checking the conduits and recalibrating the systems. Leora watched, fascinated by his skill and calm under pressure. "You are remarkable," she said. "You handle danger without fear." Evan chuckled softly. "It is part of my work. I do not like leaving problems unsolved." The system stabilized, and the alarm ceased. Leora felt a strange sense of relief, not just because the problem was fixed, but because Evan had shown competence and bravery without seeking recognition. As the stars shone outside, Leora realized that her heart was stirring in a way it never had before. She did not understand it fully, but she knew this human was different, not because of wealth, rank, or power, but because he was true to himself and kind to others. Evan left the hangar that night, feeling tired but satisfied. He did not yet realize how much the princess had noticed him, how her heart had quietly begun to follow his actions, rather than the usual displays of grandeur. In the quiet of her chamber, Leora looked out at the galaxy. For the first time, she wondered if her heart could choose someone for reasons beyond duty. The stars reflected in her eyes, as if hinting at possibilities she had never imagined. The human had arrived, simple and honest, and something deep inside her stirred. She did not yet know what the future held, but for the first time, she felt curiosity not just about the galaxy, but about the person who walked among her people. His name was Evan, and he had begun to change her world quietly, without even trying. And so, the Nalari princess, who had refused all suitors, found herself thinking of a human in a way she had never thought of any being before. She did not speak of it yet, and she did not act on it, but the first step had been taken. The heart that once closed against the galaxy was slowly opening, led by a young human who had no idea of the power he held over her thoughts and feelings. The morning sun shone across the palace gardens, painting the paths with gold. Princess Leora walked slowly, deep in thought. She had spent the night thinking about Evan. She knew he was different from the other visitors, different from the many nobles who had tried to impress her. He was honest and brave, and his quiet confidence had captured her attention. Evan arrived at the hangar, carrying his tools and notes from the previous day's repairs. He was greeted by Lily, who smiled and nodded at him. "Ready for another day of hard work?" Evan nodded. "I hope we can finish the calibrations on the secondary engines today. They are old and fragile." As he worked, he noticed someone watching him. Leora had returned, claiming she wanted to see the engines in action, but as usual, she stayed at a respectful distance. Evan continued his work, focused on the delicate circuits and energy flows. He did not glance at her, yet he could feel her eyes on him. "These engines are older than most human ships," Leora said softly. "How do you manage to fix them?" Evan wiped his hands on his apron and smiled. "You need patience and understanding. You cannot force the parts to work. You have to guide them carefully." Leora nodded, thinking about her own life. She had been pushed into situations without choice, but here was someone who showed respect for the work itself, not just the results. She felt a strange sense of admiration. Days passed, and Leora began spending more time with Evan. They walked in the gardens, discussing the stars and the planets in his home system. Evan described Earth in simple words, telling her about forests, rivers, and oceans. Leora listened, fascinated by his stories. She had never thought about the lives of humans beyond their technology and space missions. One afternoon, the Palace Council summoned Leora to discuss her future. She had expected this meeting. The council urged her to choose a noble suitor from a neighboring system, warning that refusing them could create tension and even war. "I cannot marry someone I do not care for," Leora said firmly. "I will not choose a partner out of fear or duty." The council members exchanged worried glances. "Princess, the Empire needs alliances. You cannot ignore politics for personal feelings." Leora shook her head. "I understand our responsibilities, but my choice must come from my heart." After the meeting, Leora returned to the gardens, troubled. She did not mention Evan to the council, but her thoughts returned to him constantly. She wondered if he could ever understand the pressures of her life. Meanwhile, Evan continued working in the hangar. He discovered a fault in one of the palace's energy conduits. It was minor but could become dangerous if ignored. He reported it to the palace engineers, but they dismissed his concerns, thinking a human could not fully understand the Nalari technology. Leora, however, listened carefully. She walked to the hangar and looked at the readings herself. She realized Evan was correct. A small smile appeared on her face. Here was someone who understood problems, acted with skill, and did not demand recognition. "We must fix this quickly," Leora said, her tone calm but firm. Evan looked at her in surprise. "You will help?" Leora nodded. "I will. Show me what to do." Together, they worked on the conduit. Leora followed Evan's instructions carefully, learning quickly. She was impressed by his patience and clarity. Evan guided her without frustration, and they managed to stabilize the system before it became dangerous. The experience drew them closer. They spoke quietly, sharing thoughts about duty, courage, and trust. Leora found herself laughing more than she had in years. Evan admired her intelligence and determination. The distance between human and alien seemed smaller as they worked side by side. One evening, while the twin moons rose over the palace, Evan invited Leora to a quiet balcony overlooking the gardens. The air was cool, and the lights of the city sparkled below. "Princess," Evan said softly, "I have never met anyone like you. You are strong, smart, and kind, but you carry a weight that is heavy." Leora looked at him, her eyes reflecting the moons. "I have always had responsibilities. It is not easy to choose freely." Evan nodded. "I understand. But even in difficult situations, you can make choices that are true to yourself. That is what matters." Leora felt a warmth she could not explain. She wanted to tell him how much his words meant, but she hesitated. She had never allowed herself to feel this way before. She feared disappointment and the judgments of others. Over the next weeks, Evan and Leora continued to spend time together. He taught her simple human games and shared stories of his life on Earth. She began to see the beauty in small, ordinary things, the way the wind moved through trees, the sound of water in fountains, and the gentle laughter of someone who was not trying to impress her. One day, the palace received news of a rival faction from a distant system. They demanded that Leora accept one of their warriors as her future partner or face consequences. The message was clear. Refusal would bring conflict. The council was in a panic, urging immediate compliance. Leora felt a storm of frustration. She could not, would not, allow anyone to dictate her choice. She turned to Evan, hoping he might understand. "Evan," she said quietly, "this is serious. They want me to marry someone I do not know, someone I cannot trust." Evan considered her words carefully. "We must act carefully. Perhaps there is a way to prevent conflict without giving in to threats." Leora nodded. She trusted him. Together they began to observe the rival faction, looking for weaknesses and gathering information. Evan's skills as an engineer and thinker proved invaluable. He noticed small details that others overlooked, and his human perspective gave Leora new ideas for protection. As they worked together, their bond deepened. Leora saw Evan not just as a human, but as a companion she could rely on. She realized that his courage was quiet, but steadfast. He did not seek glory, yet he acted bravely when needed. One night, as they studied the data in the palace library, Leora felt a moment of hesitation. She wanted to reach out, to touch his hand, but she stopped. She was not sure of her feelings and feared what admitting them might mean. Evan looked up from the screens. "Princess, no matter what happens, we will face it together." Leora smiled, her heart stirring. She had never felt this kind of trust and connection before. She nodded, grateful for his presence and support. Outside, the stars continued to shine, silent witnesses to the growing bond between a human and an alien princess. Each day, their friendship deepened, and a subtle but undeniable feeling began to bloom between them. Neither spoke of it openly, but both felt it in their actions and shared moments. The rival faction remained a looming threat, but Leora and Evan were determined to face it together. They knew that the coming days would test their courage, intelligence, and loyalty, and as they stood side by side, ready for whatever challenges awaited, both realized that the connection between them was becoming something neither could ignore. For the first time, Leora thought not only of duty, but of choice, hope, and the quiet pull of the heart. And Evan, unaware of the full depth of her feelings, continued to work, to teach, and to stand beside her, unknowingly building the trust and affection that would change the course of the Nalari Empire. The days passed quietly at the palace, but tension filled the air. News of the rival faction's approach spread like wildfire through the Nalari Empire. Princess Leora knew the council would pressure her to accept the warrior they demanded, but she remained steadfast. Her heart would not be dictated by threats or politics. Evan continued his work in the hangar, unaware of the full seriousness of the situation. He focused on repairing the older starships, improving their systems, and testing energy conduits. Leora visited him often, bringing food or small gifts from the gardens. Their conversations had grown natural and easy. They laughed, shared stories, and learned about each other's worlds. The bond between them grew quietly but deeply. One evening, as the twin moons rose, an alarm rang through the palace. The energy shields surrounding the city showed unusual fluctuations. Leora and Evan ran to the control center, where engineers scrambled to understand the readings. "What is happening?" Leora asked urgently. Evan studied the data. It looks like someone is trying to breach the shield controls. This is not normal. The engineers exchanged worried glances, unsure how to respond to a human's observations. Leora trusted him. We need to act now. Show me what to do. Evan guided her through the emergency protocols. Together they traced the signals to a hidden device planted near the energy conduits. It was designed to disrupt the palace shields at the critical moment. Leora's eyes widened in realization. This was an attack planned carefully, not just a warning. We must disable it immediately, she said, determination in her voice. Evan nodded. I can do it, but I need you to watch the energy flow and help me stabilize it. The two worked together, hands moving quickly over controls and conduits. The hidden device hummed with energy, threatening to overload the shield. Evan adjusted circuits, rerouted power, and gave Leora instructions. She followed them perfectly, focusing her attention on the readings, her heart pounding. Suddenly, a surge of energy exploded from the device, throwing Evan back. Leora rushed to his side, fear gripping her. He was injured, but conscious. Blood trickled from a cut on his arm, yet he tried to reassure her. It's okay, Princess. We can still fix it. Focus on the shield. I'll manage the device. Leora nodded, feeling both fear and admiration. She watched him work, his determination unshaken despite his injury. He had no hesitation, no thought for himself, only for the safety of the city and the people he had come to care for. After tense minutes, the surge was contained and the shield stabilized. The device was neutralized and the threat was removed. The engineers looked at Evan with awe, realizing that a human had saved the palace from serious danger. Leora knelt beside him, gently pressing a cloth to his wound. You risked your life for me, for our people. Why? Evan smiled weakly. I do not see you as a princess to be saved. I see you as someone I care about, someone I want to protect. Her heart swelled. She had never heard such honesty, such courage, and such care. She realized in that moment that her feelings for him went beyond curiosity or friendship. She admired him deeply, and she could not ignore the stirring in her heart. News of Evan's bravery spread quickly through the palace. The council and the guards who had doubted him now looked at him with respect. He had proven that courage, loyalty, and intelligence were not limited to alien nobility. Leora spent the night by his side, ensuring he rested and that his wound healed. She felt a protective warmth toward him that she had never felt for anyone before. Her mind replayed his words, his calm strength, and the way he had faced danger without fear. The next morning, the rival faction sent another message, warning that they would attack if the princess did not comply. Leora knew they could not be trusted. She decided to act, but this time she would not act alone. She found Evan in the hangar, examining engine schematics. Evan, I need your help again. The faction is planning something larger. We cannot let them succeed. Evan looked at her with concern. Are you sure? It is dangerous. Leora nodded. I am sure. I trust you. Together we can stop them. They began to strategize, using the information they had gathered. Evan suggested innovative ways to detect enemy movements, modify defenses, and strengthen the palace's security. Leora coordinated with the guards and engineers, her leadership and his insights creating a formidable team. Over several days, they uncovered the rival faction's plan. A small group of saboteurs had infiltrated the palace outskirts, intending to disable defenses and open the way for a larger force. Leora and Evan devised a plan to intercept them quietly, without alerting the entire city and causing panic. Under the cover of night, they led a small team to the perimeter. Evan moved carefully, disarming traps and guiding the team through hidden paths. Leora followed closely, her heart beating fast but her mind sharp. Together, they found the saboteurs, who were surprised and unprepared for the coordinated defense. Evan confronted the leader, using his knowledge of technology to disable their equipment. Leora and the guards restrained the rest. The threat was neutralized before any major damage could occur. The palace and city remained safe, largely due to their combined efforts. Back inside, Leora breathed a sigh of relief. She turned to Evan, gratitude and admiration filling her eyes. "You saved us again. I cannot thank you enough." Evan shook his head. "I only did what was necessary. You inspired me to act, Princess. Without your trust, I could not have done this." Leora felt a warmth in her chest that went beyond relief. She realized that her heart had found someone she could depend on, someone who cared for her not because of her title, but because of who she was. In the days that followed, the palace slowly returned to normal. Leora continued her duties, but she found herself thinking of Evan constantly. She watched him as he worked, noting his focus, kindness, and quiet strength. She had never felt such a connection before. Evan, too, found it impossible to ignore the growing feelings he had for Leora. Her intelligence, courage, and compassion had captured his respect and admiration. He realized that his feelings went beyond friendship. He wanted to protect her, to support her, and perhaps, one day, to be by her side. As the stars twinkled above the palace, Leora and Evan shared quiet moments together. They spoke of dreams, hopes, and fears. They learned to trust each other completely, knowing that the bond they were building was unlike anything they had experienced before. Though the rival faction remained a distant threat, the palace was safe for now. Leora had found someone who saw her as a person, not a princess to be won, and Evan had found someone who inspired courage, loyalty, and a quiet, steady love. The days of uncertainty were not over, but a new chapter had begun. The alien princess and the human had formed a bond that neither politics nor fear could break. And as the galaxy watched silently, the first sparks of something extraordinary were beginning to grow between them.